Welcome back to another episode of Raw Talk, where we get zero F's over here. In today's episode, we'll be taking you to Alligator Alcatraz. Yes, sir, we'll be taking you live and direct right outside Alligator Alcatraz. Listen, I just got back to the house. It was crazy. The mosquitoes were swarming me like crazy. Nothing I've never been through. I'm from Florida, used to the mosquitoes. They're like a distant cousin that you can't get rid of. Now, the reason we're taking you to Alligator Alcatraz today is because everybody is talking about the conditions, the placement of the detention center, so on and so forth. And when it comes to prison, crime, or related topics, 10 years in Florida State Prison. Before I take you to a live outside look at Alligator Alcatraz, I have to tell you a short prison story. Speaking about mosquitoes. Time I'm at South Florida Reception Center. And anybody knows South Florida Reception Center? It's the reception prison for all of South Florida. If you're from Collier County, if you're from Dade County, Broward, Palm Beach, it doesn't matter where you're from in South Florida. If you get sentenced to prison, you're gonna wind up at South Florida Reception Center. It's so overcrowded and falling apart. And when I don't even know the right word to use for the way it's falling apart. It is condemned. It should be condemned. It should be shut down, how bad the buildings are. But I'm gonna take you back to when I was in J3 at South Florida and we had to take a shower. This is my first day in J3 and I got a shower. I gotta hit that water. I'm starting to feel a little musky down below, you know? So I asked my bunkie, hey man, which shower is the best shower to use? Because usually in any dorm you go into, any prison you go into, there's always a preferred shower. My bunkie looked at me and said, brother, pick whichever one you want and good luck. I said, what you mean by good luck? He said, brother, you're going to have to figure out how to turn the shower on by itself. I said, all right. So I make my way. I grab my towel, grab my blues, make my way to the shower. I get to the shower. Mind you, as soon as I open this little shower curtain at South Florida, there is a swarm of mosquitoes. I'm talking not 50, not 100. I'm saying at least 500 mosquitoes breeding inside this shower. So I make my way into the shower and I try to cut the water on. The water doesn't cut on. I notice that the whole plate to where the water is, it's a big metal plate, is pulled off the wall. So I go and look at the plate, try to see what's going on with this water. I pull the plate back. There is a sheet tied around the hose that feeds the water to the spigot. It's clinked right in half, right? So I untie the sheet. As soon as I untie the sheet, the water comes out. Not only does the water come out, but it comes out cold as ever. Cold showers is very appreciative, especially when you're at South Florida Reception Center in the summer where there's no AC, no running air. You just want to dive in there and wash all the sweat off you. But at this point, when I jumped into the water, the only thing I was concerned with was fighting mosquitoes. Real deal, left, right, hook, left, right, hook, weave, uppercut to these mosquitoes. It was not easy, bro. You have about 45 seconds to get in there, wash yourself off before you get attacked. And when I say attacked, I mean attacked by mosquitoes. But that was one of the small inconveniences that we had to deal with besides not having AC, besides the building falling apart. Another inconvenience was the infestation of roaches and rats. We used to have to set up chip bags in our locker. When we go to the locker in the morning and look in the chip bag, there's about 50 cockroaches. What happens is you set up an empty chip bag and these cockroaches, they crawl their way into the chip bag, but they can't seem to crawl their way out because of the silver lining on the inside. So it's pretty much a cockroach trap catcher. But every cell I've been in at South Florida, if you put one of those chip bags in your locker, you're guaranteed 50 to 60 cockroaches by morning. I'm talking too much. Let me take you right to Alligator Alcatraz. Let's get busy with it, y'all.
Just Florida boy shit. That boy stinking in a bitch too.
When you honestly think about it, it's honestly a easier way for the immigration system to deport people faster to their country, because this is not only is it now a detention center for immigrants, but it's also a landing strip. So essentially, once you leave your caged in bunk area, you take about 50 steps to the left and another 50 yards ahead and you're on a plane on your way to your country. So essentially you're not waiting inside of a federal detention center for 2 to 3 months fighting to get an immigration bond.
Essentially you're here for about a week and then you're put right on a plane. You don't even have to go anywhere. Now, as far as the conditions, and this is my personal perspective, we have two prisons that are literally an hour away from here. We have Dade CI, which is an hour in that direction, and we have South Florida Reception Center, which is an hour in that direction. Now, these prisons house criminals. Now, I'm not trying to take anything from anywhere, because being incarcerated and locked in these conditions, whether you're at Alligator Alcatraz or South Florida Reception Center, is harsh regardless. But when I was at South Florida Reception Center, none of the prison had AC, no working AC. We were battling mosquitoes the same way I'm battling mosquitoes out here. We were battling mosquitoes. Basically a rundown prison. Walls are falling apart, bunks are falling apart, no AC, no anything. And these are similar conditions. However, this is a newer prison, and this is only for immigration. Now, let me know your thoughts, your feelings in the comments about Alligator Alcatraz. Do you think this is humane? Do you think it's unhumane? And honestly, the only part that I find wrong about this, and this is just my personal opinion, this is coming from somebody who spent 10 years inside the Florida State prison system, and I understand that, you know, I spent time in the Florida State prison system for being a criminal. And a lot of people want to say, oh, but they're not criminals. They're just people trying to find a better life and this, that, and the third. And I totally understand that. But if Pino were to enter Germany, if Pino were to enter Amsterdam, if Pino were to enter Norway, Germany, Russia, any one of these countries, illegally, what would happen is I would be charged as a criminal and ultimately deported back to the United States. So in all actuality, and just a personal opinion, I honestly think it would be better to house them here, because honestly, they're going home faster, bro. They're spending 2-3 days, maybe a week here, they're getting on a plane, they're going home, perchance spending 3-4 months in a federal detention center. It's just not right. The one problem I do have with Alligator Alcatraz itself is the location. The location is unsuitable for the environment. This is the Everglades. This is a protected environment. There's a lot of wildlife out here. And potentially when you put a detention center or a housing unit in the middle of this wildlife, you ruin the atmosphere and the ecosystem. So potentially that's the one problem that I have with this. And as you can see, there's a non-stop flow of traffic. We have bikers pulling up. We have, you know, constant vehicles in and out. I don't know if they're transporting people. I don't know if they're transporting food. A lot of these vehicles are unmarked. So yeah, y'all let me know your thoughts, opinions, feelings in the comments on Alligator Alcatraz.
Now y'all let me know how you feel about Alligator Alcatraz. Do you believe that it is a faster process for immigration to speed it up, not have these people sitting inside federal detention centers waiting to get deported? Just a faster process all around, 2-3 days at Alligator Alcatraz and they're on a plane? Or do you think it's inhumane? And if you do think it's inhumane, I would like to know what you think about the 64 prisons in the state of Florida. Are they inhumane? Because 50 of those 64 prisons in the state of Florida do not have running AC. 50 of those 64 prisons in the state of Florida are run down. Not only are people mistreated, but you got to think Florida Department of Corrections induces slavery. They actually still have slavery intact. They actually still go by a slavery law. When you go to Florida Department of Corrections, you will work, and you will work for free. And if you don't work for free, you will be placed in confinement with all privileges taken from you. Just something to think about, man. Y'all let me know y'all thoughts and feelings in the comments.